Hey, church family, it's Andy. I want to take a moment with you to talk about something very exciting that we're going to be doing as a church family together during the season of Lent. It's hard to believe that we've been in this unique situation, shall we say, for almost a year. I'm very excited as we enter into the season of Lent, what we're going to have the chance to do together as a church, both regarding worship and regarding our disciplines of Lent. So I wanted to take a moment right now and share with you something that I'm asking you to do, something that, as I told the staff and told other folks, I know I'm going to sound like a crazy preacher man here, but as I began to think about and pray about Lent in this season, I felt a clear call from God to ask our church to do something specific. So as we enter into Lent, starting this Ash Wednesday, which is the 17th, there's something I want to ask you to pray about doing and being part of within the life of our church together. I felt a call from God as we enter into the season to encourage us to do some shared disciplines together. In this season, know that we've had different places we can be together through Zoom and through technology, and we're going to have more things coming in the coming days where we can be together. I think we have missed some of our shared common experiences. So this year, I want to ask our church to share in some disciplines together. And as I said, I felt kind of a specific call from God to ask you to fast with me and with others in this season of Lent. I want to unpack what that means and how we're going to do it in the next minute or two. First off, real quick on fasting, and I want to let you know that on Wednesday nights, during a Wednesday night live Bible study, I'm going to teach on fasting during the season. But fasting, biblically, is not a diet. It's not even really self-improvement. But fasting is where we give up something, and in giving this thing up, we give God the additional space in our life to speak to us more clearly and more directly. Fasting kind of clears the deck, if you will, and allows God room to really work in our life unencumbered. So I want to encourage you and ask you to fast with our church in this Lenten season. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to have two different and distinct opportunities. As Methodists, we were formed and shaped by John Wesley. Wesley encouraged the early Methodists to fast twice a week, on Wednesday and on Fridays. So our fasting is going to follow that same method. The primary focus will be on Fridays. On Fridays, we're asking those who physically can to fast from a meal, to fast from breakfast or lunch or supper. Don't have to fast the entire day. We're not asking you to fast all day long, but to specifically fast from one meal. And we're asking you to do two things, because Lent is about giving up something quite often to remember what Christ gave up for us. But it's also about taking up something. As Christ took up his cross, we take up something. So we're going to ask you to fast from a meal, and we're going to ask you to use the time that you would have spent eating that meal to devote yourself to loving God and loving your neighbor by reading Scripture, by having additional Scripture reading time, or by praying, or by maybe doing an act of kindness for your neighbor in some way, your coworker, your neighbor, your family, your friends. But I do want to ask you specifically to fast, and then I would prefer that we take that time to read Scripture and pray. But I want to encourage you to live out what the Spirit's calling you to do in that moment. But not only that, when we give up this meal, we're going to encourage you this year. We are all blessed here, and we're going to give up a meal, but we're going to give someone a meal. So what we're doing in this church, in our church, we've partnered for years with Rise Against Hunger. It's a great ministry where we have literally fed thousands of individuals through our church and through our ministries. So what we're asking you to do during this Lent is when you fast on Friday, you pray, you read Scripture, and then you take that amount of money that you would have spent on your meal, and you donate that to Rise Against Hunger through our church. And there's a couple ways you can do that. One is that you can just, over the course of Lent, figure out how much you would have eaten on Fridays or whatever the meal is, and then just make a check out to the church or donate that amount to the church. But secondly, we're going to try something a little different this year for that instant accountability and for that instant faithfulness. We have with our online giving program, we have a text to give feature. So during Lent on Fridays, when you fast and you pray and you read, we're going to encourage you to give the amount that you would have spent on that meal to Rise Against Hunger. And here's a simple and easy way to do it. You can text the dollar amount along with the word rise to, let me get my, I know I wrote this down so I wouldn't get the number wrong. You can text the dollar amount and the word rise to 84321. And that will allow you to give to Rise Against Hunger through our church's online giving program. The first time you do it, you'll get sent a link where you'll have to fill out some of your info. We encourage individuals to, when you fill this link out, to submit your checking account number instead of your debit or credit card. That just saves on processing fees for both you and for us. But however you choose to do it, you'll get sent that one-time link. You fill that out, and then moving forward, on every Friday when you give up a meal, you can text the dollar amount, the word RISE, to 84321, and you'll be able to make a donation to Rise Against Hunger instantaneously in that moment. That's our primary focus, is going to be that Friday fasting during the season of Lent. However, you know, being the husband of a dietitian and knowing many people with different health issues, I know that not everyone can fast physically from food. I'm fully aware of that. And the last thing we'd ever want to do is to put your health in danger. So we're going to encourage those who are not able to physically fast on Friday or just aren't prefer not to. Remember I said Wesley encourages us to fast twice, Wednesdays and Fridays. We're going to encourage you on Wednesdays to fast in this way. We're going to encourage you on Wednesdays, if you aren't able to fast on Fridays, on Wednesdays we would encourage you to fast from screen time. Screen time for comfort and distraction. We understand that many of you have distance learning from school, or you work from home in this season. So we understand that there are certain things from which we need our screens to function today. But we're going to ask you to fast from the screen time that we do for entertainment and for comfort. The mindless scrolling of Facebook, the mindless watching of Netflix or Disney Plus, whatever. On this Wednesday, we'd ask you to fast from screen time, and we would ask you to, that's what you give up, we'd ask you to take up something that's going to help you increase your love of God and neighbor. So we would invite you to fast from that, but then take up reading of Scripture in that time, or prayer, or, like we said, a conversation with your spouse or loved one. We would encourage you to maybe have a conversation with your neighbor. Maybe do an act of kindness for a neighbor or for a coworker. But in your fasting, you fill that space with something that's going to increase your love of God and your love of neighbor. So we're giving up something, but we're taking up something. As Christ gave up his life, we're giving up something. As Christ took up his cross, we're taking up something. And for kids, Kate has worked up a great Lenten map that we're going to encourage our kids to go through during this season of Lent. So we're going to have these Lenten maps available for pickup at worship, or in the church office, or contact us, and we'll be sure to get you a Lenten map. But Kate has created this map over the 40 days of Lent for our kids to be part of different activities to help them increase their awareness of God and God's love for them and their call to love God and love neighbor. I'm very excited about what Lent can be for our church this year. And like I said, I know I sound like a crazy preacher man, but I've just felt this call from God in this season to encourage our church to walk together specifically in this season, shared disciplines, specifically with fasting. So I encourage you, and I'd love for you to take part in our Lenten disciplines this year here at St. Matthew's. You can find out more about this and get all these detailed instructions by visiting our website at stm-umc.org/Lent. Once again, thanks for being a part of our church, and I pray for you a holy Lent where we can experience God and know God in this season.